Hi guys! I mean, why are you so spaced out? You can come a bit closer. Feel some love? No? So, welcome to the Gaming Industry Talk. Thanks for coming down. I'm your host, Shahlaa Tahira. I'll be on a panel later about radio and podcasting. That's my bag. I'm an executive producer at BBC Radio 1 Extra and Sony Music, and I also present podcasts and do some radio presenting as well. So if anyone is into come to that later. I'm going to be honest with you. Gaming, I'm like the Sims gaming. That's my idea of gaming. So you guys are definitely more experts than me, but we have experts to talk to you about it today. So first I wanted to introduce Taiwo Omisore, solo independent games developer and solutions engineer, and Leah Magoye, games writer and senior narrative designer. So this panel is part of We Are Lewisham's Borough of Culture for 2022. We've got a whole day of events today across the university, so make sure you check it all out and take pictures, hashtag, tag us, We Are Lewisham, yeah? So, Leah, games writer and senior narrative designer. I mean, just what does that title? Break it down a little bit.
Gosh, actually, I should have updated it. It's also story lead and embedded narrative designer. But what I do predominantly is basically think about how the narrative structure is and how what the experience is for the audience to move through the game from a story perspective, and just make sure that it aligns with the narrative and what we're trying to say, what the themes are, who the characters are, and what that kind of storytelling arc and experience is, making sure that that's reinforced with the way that you're playing the game as well, with the game mechanics. That is so vague and so not helpful, but I don't know, I think a bit later one of the questions is probably my background, and I can tell you how I got here, which is possibly more useful because I think, I don't know what you find out with, but in the games industry, titles in different studios in different contexts mean completely different things. So it's more about you figuring out what you want to do and then, where you want to be doing it, rather than being okay, I want to be the specific title, because it could mean anything.
There's so many.
So I didn't actually answer the question, but yeah.
We'll get into it a bit later. And Taiwo, what about you? Break down your title a little bit for us.
Yeah, so I'm an independent games developer, primarily focusing on mobile. So I've made 8 apps altogether. So my first app came out in 2013, which is almost a decade ago, which is crazy. And I've released apps on the iPhone, so iOS, and also on the Play Store, so on Android. I started just with Flash games when I was a kid, and then when the iPhone came out, I was just compelled by this device that everyone had and the power that it had, so that really kind of gave me that push in that direction to focus on mobile app development. But I also work as a solutions engineer, and that is basically a role in which I help publishers, so app developers with SDKs or software development kits as well, so lots to keep me busy.
So before we get into the meat of it, we're going to watch a quick film, and it's all about the gaming industry. So maybe we'll take a seat there while this plays.
The day today has been incredible. It's been great to connect with different people in the gaming space.
Seeing people face to face, you are reminded of the energy, the passion and love people have for the craft that we do.
As we were waiting for our pictures to be taken and having these interviews, in between all of those things, it's just been really great to talk to other tremendously talented, opinionated, enthusiastic, driven people.
I've just been thrown into an amazing bunch of people, some of them that I was aware of, but I'd never met any of these people before.
We've all made our route in different ways and we've had various inspirations, but we also have common ground.
It's made experiences that I've had feel validated, but it also makes dreams that I have feel possible.
My name is Jayan Lopez, and I am the founder and CEO of Black Girl Gamers, which is a community-powered organization that specializes in heightening Black women's voices and visibility and equity in the gaming space.
My name is John Lau. I am a game producer and designer, and I am currently working for a London-based studio called Us Two Games.
My name is Leah Magoye. I'm a narrative designer.
My name is Taiwo Omisore. I am an app developer.
My name is Lily Ibrahim, and I am a lead artist working for Us Two Games.
I'm Adam Campbell. I work for Macadamia as Director of Product.
Hi, my name is Jay Shin. I'm the co-founder director of an indie studio called Arrogant Pixel. I'm also the course leader at the University of West London.
I'm Haroon Dantre. I am a sound designer, and I currently work at Codemasters.
Ensemble today has been really incredible. It's great to meet some of the great talent and minds in the video games industry, particularly seeing the diversity that we do have.
Ensemble is a fantastic initiative to meet like-minded gamers from underrepresented backgrounds, so people can know that, look, there are people that look like me, that sound like me, that are the same background as me, that are in this industry that I'm so passionate about and I want to be a part of.
I am absolutely the proof that Ensemble is effective. I know that I would not have felt as confident, as driven, as empowered if I hadn't gone to the exhibition in 2018. Being able to see myself in the industry by virtue of seeing that, it made me feel welcome. It made me feel invited in.
It's been a really interesting day. It's a good chance to talk about our experiences as minorities in the game industry. I think a lot of these experiences have been shared, so it's really good to talk about that in a very open and honest way, and really looking forward, as are many others, to kind of showcasing ourselves and hopefully inspiring the next generation.
The origins of Black Girl Gamers are quite simple, to be honest. I was lonely and I didn't know where to find other Black women, but also I felt ostracized because of the racism and the sexism that you experience when gaming online, or even in some of the games, you didn't see Black women represented very often. So I wanted to create my own space to have a community, to find my tribe, and it started off as a Facebook group in 2015. So fast forward about almost 7 years now, we have over 8,000 members. We're a community-powered organization now, and we do a lot of things to increase Black women's equity in the space. But yeah, that's how it started. It's really, really fun. We have anime nights, we have game nights, we do workshops and mentorship programs. We source from our community to broker them as talent for brands, so there's opportunity for career development there. The workshops offer you opportunities for career development there, and it's a really just fun, diverse group that has women from all over the world.
So I've made a few apps, so I've made 8 in total. 7 of those 8 have been games, starting from my first app, Spacebots, which is a take on retro games such as Arkanoid and Breakout. More recently, one of the games that I built is a game called One Chance. And One Chance, it does exactly what it says on the tin, and you have to play 14 mini games back to back, and you only ever have one chance to play it. So I make apps away from work. So my full-time job is I work as a solutions engineer, so fixing problems with software development kits for an advertising company. I have always loved just tinkering around with creative tech, so having a computer and being able to type lines of code to see a line move or a color change from one color to another color has always been fascinating to me. I still am blown away that people choose to spend time with my apps. Someone recently emailed me and said, I played Spacebots throughout the pandemic and it really helped me get through a tough time. So those are the kind of stories that kind of really motivate me to keep building these digital experiences.
So how did I get into games? I think I've always played games my whole life with my little brother and with my friends. I didn't think I was going to go into games. I was studying visual arts and illustration. When I finished uni, I spent about a year doing freelance illustration, and it was mainly for books and other publications and even tabletop board games. One of my friends was working for a games company and they were looking for junior artists, so I decided to apply, and the rest is history. So I've been at Us 2 Games for about 2 years now. When I first joined the company, I joined the project Alba, a wildlife adventure. I was so inspired by everyone's passion towards the environmental campaign that was launched with the release of the game. To me, it was sort of a turning point in my career where I started to understand that as a developer and as a visual artist, we can make people talk about things that we care about. It made me understand as well is that if the team are happy to talk about what they care about, that can feed into the product. And for the team to really be open and comfortable to talk about their passions, then they need to feel safe. And for a diverse team to feel safe, they need to feel like they are part of a diverse group.
Games I worked on include Sniper Elite 4, Battlezone VR, Grid Legends, and Dirt 5. I particularly work on creating the sounds of 3D worlds, making sure everything sounds exciting and vibrant and really captures the player and embellishes the gameplay. My journey's quite a long one. I've been involved in audio since I was about 13 years old. I attended a charity project run in my hometown of Nottingham to try and encourage people through music to find a positive outlet. So I attended those at a young age and took a real shine towards the technical side of things. Later I went to university and I studied sound engineering. Halfway through my second year in uni, I decided to look towards games and try and pursue a career in that, as it was a great passion of mine. So over those 2 years, I taught myself how to develop games. I downloaded Unreal Engine, I looked at some middleware called Wise, and through a lot of YouTube tutorials and a lot of documentation reading, I learned how to make sound for games and really worked on it through my final year project and went on from there. It's an industry where things are always moving and things are always changing. I think that's the best thing about it for me, is that what I'm doing now and what I'm doing 5 years ago, or even what I'm doing in 5 years' time, they're all going to be completely different and very exciting in different ways.
I love story, and I love audiences, and I love thinking about how to surprise and delight them and how to guide them through a path and a story. What games allow for, or interactive allows for, is a multi-dimensional look at humanity. You're able to widen the scope of who people get to be and how they get to understand why other people behave the way they do, which is fascinating and humbling and funny and angering. It's just the most wonderful thing to create. But I love also that I can't do it on my own, that it has to be collaborative. And I love being pushed by the other creatives and considering their point of view, and then just pushing the thing across the line as a group. I adore that. I don't know that there's a typical route into the industry. I think mine is less typical than most, and it was just a series of incredibly fortunate events. But I will say that the catalyst was in 2018, being able to see myself potentially in the industry by virtue of seeing that ensemble exhibition.
My journey goes back quite a long way. I was 11 years old and I realised that video games is an industry which is an incredible blend of art, science, music and technology. And I was really intrigued by the types of worlds that could be created in that format. So I aspired to get into games, sort of through a technical route. So for one day I'm going to study computer science, and then from there go into the video games industry. In terms of going from university to my first job, I was quite fortunate because I managed to do a work placement in between my studies. So getting that first foot in the door was definitely a big advantage for me. The video games industry hasn't always been very diverse. And it also favours people who are living in capital cities, have more money. But I think it's important for an industry to continue growing and to produce the best and most original content that we allow people from all walks of life to get jobs in games. It's great being part of something which people love. It's entertaining, it's creative. I've met some of my best friends in the industry, and coming up to 14 years, here's to the next 14.
I didn't study video games at all. It's not something that I fell into because I definitely pursued a career in it at some point. But it was probably when I first started just sort of making stuff, graphics products, software. When I met my business partner in about 2007, there was no concept of a career in my mind at the time. We just started making small little projects, little games. I started learning 3D modeling at that point, and it's all just been a very organic journey since then, really. I'm really proud of the projects that my company have created, or I myself have been involved in, because they are definitely labour of love. That's the one thing that I'll say. The people that are working in my company are really special. They are not industry vets. They're not hugely experienced producers and creators, really. I mean, but as creative people, they're one of the best people I know. They come from all sorts of backgrounds in music, filmmaking, but we're kind of united by our love of video games and creating them. The thing that makes it really special is that I'm making really cool stuff with my friends. Yeah.
In terms of games that I worked on recently, the last game that I shipped was called South of the Circle. That was a strongly story-driven narrative adventure set in Antarctica in the 1960s, and I was the creative producer. There were no polar bears in Antarctica, no. What a producer does on a game can actually vary from studio to studio, so it's quite a difficult thing to define. I would say, in very pragmatic terms, a producer is responsible for delivering the game and making sure that everyone who is working on the game knows what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, and how long they have to do it. What makes a good producer? I'd say I'd probably answer on two levels. On a basic level, a producer needs to be thorough, methodical, organized. But I think on another, a producer fundamentally needs to be compassionate. You have to be able to understand that the team is made up of fallible, human, emotional people, all of whom have their individual needs. And the interaction between them and the structures that they're working within is a really important thing to understand. I'm working in a medium where the likelihood of creating something that has never been seen before is much, much higher than any other medium that I can think of. You couldn't really necessarily say that about film. You couldn't necessarily say that about TV, even though, this is a golden age for that kind of work to be made. But there is so much breadth and so much variety that can be explored in games that it's a tremendously exciting field to be in right now.
Great, round of applause, guys. That was so nice to see such, firstly, diverse representation on screen in the industry that, cannot always be diverse, but also, and I think this is true of all creative paths, how different everyone's journey is into it, and to know there's not one specific way to get in. I think that's so important, going into an industry where you feel a bit like, how do I get my foot in? It's like everyone has a different experience. So let's get into it. When did you realise that you had a passion for the industry? Start with you.
I wouldn't say that I had a passion for the industry as such, but I learned that I had a passion for interactive storytelling. So the idea that it would be not necessarily passive. I was working for a company and I created an interactive audio experience, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And I not obviously, but I had played games before and things like that. But I never really thought about who and makes them and how. But once I started creating this sort of audio interactive experience, I was like, oh my goodness, this is basically, you know, what one could do with games. For the most part, the tentpole games that you see, their genre, their mechanic, it wasn't something that was appealing to me as such. So I never really considered the games industry as being for me. But once I realized that, no, it's about anything that engages with an audience in a way that they have to then, you know, make choices and guide the way that they go through the world or the story. I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. So yeah, it was just who was on there? I was talking about I think it was Haroon was saying, or maybe Jason, that they had a very organic experience, following their passions, following their interests, and that led them to this career and this path that allows for, as John was saying at the end, much more breadth and depth than maybe any other medium, because the possibilities are huge. So I always go so far away from what your question was. But when I just stumbled upon.
So it's almost accidental, basically.
Oh, yeah, entirely accidental. But incredibly organic.
So what about you? When did you find your passion? By the way, that One Chance, I'm downloading that when we leave here. That sounds like my type of game.
the amount of angry emails that I've gotten from people that have played that game, there's a lot. But I think for me, so I'm one of two, so I've got a twin brother, and ever since my mum unwittingly brought back a Nintendo Entertainment System from one of her colleagues, because I think her children had like outgrown it. Like there was like a Switch.
Which Nintendo is this? Because we got some young bucks in the audience.
Okay, right. So before that, so 2 systems before the N64. So the Nintendo Entertainment System, I think, was like the first commercially available in the UK. I think it came out in, I want to say 86, 87. So yeah, and there was a game called Bubble Bubble where you play as a little dinosaur, and yeah, it was like a switch that just turned on, and I was like, this is what I want to do in any capacity, like, you know, whether it's sound design, graphics, programming. And I think my primary school teacher really saw that I had a passion for computers and really insisted and encouraged my mum to get the internet. I think we had 28.8k dial-up modem, so very slow internet, and yeah, the rest is history. So from a very early age, I kind of knew that I wanted, maybe not particularly just like video games might have been like the start, but just wanted to work in technology because I just found it so amazing.
And obviously, like, I always encourage people to follow their passions, and loads of people have like passion projects they do on the side. But as a career, when was that kind of turning point that you was like, oh, I don't need to just do this as a passion project. This could actually be my career in the industry?
So I did Latin and Greek at university, and then for reasons best known to I don't know who, went into banking and crashed out of that in 2008. And I had like a little quarter life crisis where I was like, I should just do what I want to do as opposed to what I think I should do. And that's when I started to, you know, try to follow sort of organic and more try to make what I wanted to do something that would pay me, basically. And the reason why I did Latin and Greek is I really love story, and I did my dissertation on a South Korean film called Old Boy, and I was like, oh, I really love to make films, but that's not what I do. Like, you just don't see anybody that is like you that does it, so you're like, oh, that's not for me. But then, yeah, like I said, the joy and wonderfulness of a quarter life crisis is you're like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I sort of, step by step, got to figuring out what mediums can I tell stories in. So I've done it across loads of different things. But what I love about games and interactive, so I should have said on my in bio, so I don't just do, I worked on some mobile games. I was just working as a story lead in a writer's room for a console game. That's all of these things are narrative driven, but then I also work my title's like embedded narrative designer for Netflix. So they do, like Bandersnatch. I'm helping develop interactive film projects, and throughout all of it, it's just fundamentally having I love story and I love logic. That would combine together to be able to do it. I'm so sorry, I keep getting the question. I got
that moment of like turning your passion into career, because also I feel like you have to be in quite a privileged place to be able to go, I'm not going to do this job anymore, I'm going to follow my passion. So what advice even would you give to someone who's in that kind of limbo of, oh, can I afford to just like stop working and follow my passions and like make my passions a career?
I guess the sum total of my privilege, I think, was my youth. Is because I didn't have a child then. I didn't have overheads. I could, and I had a lot of energy and a lot of time. So I did a lot of work outside of what my passion was in order to afford to do what I wanted to do. I'm also privileged that the parents that I have taught me a great deal of tenacity, and that no is just basically a yes that hasn't happened yet. So it wasn't, I wasn't in a really, I couldn't afford it. I couldn't do it. But I guess by the same token, to some extent, I felt I could not do it. I couldn't keep trying to be what I wasn't and follow this sort of path that wasn't for me. It just wouldn't have worked for me. So yeah, if I'd sort of put it that way, which is not to say that, the other, I guess, degree of privilege is that I was in London, which meant that we had more access to things.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, now I think what I'm very fortunate with is the way that people are allow you to be remote, and so I have many different jobs. By virtue of the fact that obviously I don't physically have to be in those spaces. So advice, like I said, I'll just say just make your overheads as low as possible, and really enjoy the journey, because then any of the things that you're able to buy because you have a certain degree of income, if they're about distractions or about like fulfilling yourself, if you can get that out of the thing that you're making and the thing that you're doing, then it will compensate. But that's all I'm saying.
Nice. Taiwo, what about you?
I think that's a great question, and I think I can only really echo what's been said before. So I was working. So when I graduated from university, I was working as a systems analyst in a very large supermarket, you may have heard, called Tesco, and I really
that club card is really annoying everyone, isn't it?
100%. And I had worked there for quite a long time, so throughout it was like the first job I had, worked in a bakery and kind of worked my way up. And when I graduated, I got a position in head office, but I was really unhappy in that role, and I was like, I need to do something. So I need to do this job to sustain, a reasonable level of living, but I'm going to take a risk and do something that I actually want to do. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. At least I gave it a shot. I can live with, knowing that I tried it and it didn't work out. And so I built this game called Spacebots, and, I would show it to friends and family, and they would all say really encouraging things, as you can imagine, with friends and family. But I also asked people on my commute. So I had 3 hours to kill every single day, an hour and a half there, hour and a half back. So I would program on my commute, and I would just go up to people on the train, which, people in the UK just don't do, because that time is sacred, and say, really sorry to bother you. Do you mind trying out this app? And people would look at me like I had 3 heads, but people were really nice, and they would say really honest things like, I don't understand what this game is supposed to do, or it's really good, but this is really annoying. So I took that feedback, released the app, and was like, this is what I want to do. An opportunity came up. So for transparency, an opportunity came up within the job I was doing for me to take voluntary redundancy, and I just took it. Like, I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, probably not many opportunities to leave a position and get paid for it and that kind of gave me some runway as well. So I was like, you know what, these opportunities don't come up very often. So I took it, and yeah, the rest is history. So I guess the advice is, if you're in a position where you can, definitely give it a go. There's so much resources online, like YouTube and open source code, and yeah, I mean, even if you want to reach out to me and ask for any advice or anything like that, I'm more than happy to help, because I think when I was in that position, there wasn't many people that I could turn to. But yeah, I mean, people love talking about themselves. So if you write an email or send someone, oh, you know, can you grab a coffee or whatever, more than likely the person can say, why not?
I think what I love about both your stories is you kind of had to think outside the box to like make it work for you around other commitments that you have. And I think that's key. I mean, we live in such a digital now world now, where everyone just thinks people get successful overnight, and actually no, there's always a long story of graft and struggle and working around. And even you talk about being a mum, like balancing that around your being that responsibility. So yeah, I think that's really inspiring to hear. And obviously it's never a smooth journey. So Leah, what would you say is a massive hurdle that you had to overcome along this journey to get to where you are today?
I think I was listening to Taiwo, being really jealous of his teachers supporting him and his interests. I definitely had really supportive teachers, but a big hurdle to overcome was to get the mind that you just described, to think laterally, think outside of the box, to not define myself by what I could already see, but more like allow myself to seek who I am consistently as I go through, and also not to see, as you said, success as, you know, getting to a mountaintop and it's suddenly everything is perfect, but understanding that there really is no there. So you have to very much fall in love with the process and fall in love with the journey and fall in love with the problems, with the obstacles, so that it doesn't feel relentless. It feels I don't know. There's always a reward to it. That was a mindset shift that I had to make. Another obstacle, like being a single parent and having a child who is Taiwo has met, because I don't know if you saw in the video, but there was like this curly head mop of a little person. You never really saw their face. I had to take Ava, my daughter, to the shoot that day because it was the day that there was the tube strikes. And we literally couldn't get anywhere. I was like, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to bring her with me. And they were so wonderful and so supportive. But yeah, like trying to be who I want to be and do what I want to do, but at the same time look after a human being that needs to be nurtured. That balance is incredibly difficult. Although again, I do think a position of privilege that I have is the perspective of thinking constantly in what I do, that I'm modeling for my daughter what kind of a person she could become. Mm-hmm. So every decision that I make, I have the privilege of being able to see it through the lens of, if I show her she can do this or whatever, then she'll be able to. And that really pushes me to be more bold, to be more fearless and more myself, because that's what I want for her. So I feel very grateful for that blessing. But in terms of hurdles, the biggest thing was internal. It was very much a mindset. It was very much an idea of letting go of the ideas that there are limitations. I know it sounds really genuinely fully understand that it sounds so like airy-fairy and whatever, but it truly is the biggest thing. Once you realize that no matter what you come up against, there is always a way around it. There's always a way that you could get it done, and that you have support around you to keep reinforcing that. No matter how long it takes, you'll keep going, and I think that's the biggest, honestly, the biggest issue.
I think in terms of hurdles, I think that internal hurdle that you have with yourself is something that you 100% need to get over. And when I was entering the industry and I was developing these apps, one thing that I really struggled to find were people that were in a similar situation like myself. So people that were making apps completely independently, so not in a team of people, so you have to cover the code, the sound, the design, the art, the marketing, the whole 9 yards. And I think coming from a West African household, saying to my parents, I want to be an engineer, but not the engineer that you're thinking of, or a doctor or a lawyer. That was a battle as well. But when they see that passion, it can really shift. And just for full disclosure, I've made 8 apps, and it was only the 7th and the 8th and the 5th that really kind of took off. So One Chance, the game where you can play once, has been downloaded like an obscene amount of times, which is just crazy. And it's like, so Spacebots, probably total lifetime in 9 years in terms of downloads is maybe like 20,000, and then One Chance is like closer to 1 million. So I think just being able to keep releasing stuff, and I think for every single app, I've learned something. So when I first made Spacebots, it took me 8 months to build, and then I rewrote the whole app, and it took me 2 weeks. So like, just always developing your skills. You with every single project, whether it's a success or a failure, I think you're constantly learning. So I think in terms of like the hurdles sounds really cliche, but never give up, keep going. And yeah, like, when you pass that internal battle of, can I do this? You can really make your own history. Yeah,
you both spoke a lot on the process, which I think as creatives, like, we're always in our own head, and we're very impulsive, and so I think falling in love with that is so important. If you was to think back to like your first official job in the industry, how was that? How was that first day at work? Thinking back, like, because obviously you've been on a long journey since then.
Oh man, the imposter syndrome is so real.
Oh yes, I know.
Like, and I sorry, another thing I meant to mention before is and when we talk about hurdles is apart from being impulsive, and I don't know if it's a function of my neurodiversity or whatever, but I feel like I have to know everything. Like, I have to have like my arms around the whole thing, otherwise I can't take one step forward. And so you get really like paralyzed. And for me, I'm like, I can't work in games because I mean, I do have an interest to some extent in computer science and all that kind of stuff, but like, this industry presents itself, through acronyms and through like very specific. It feels like this sort of exclusive club.
Little club, yeah. You have to break in the door.
You have to know codes and whatever. And I'm like, I have no interest in being part of that club or being part of something that's like that. So this isn't for me. And so and that fed into the actual question. What was it like doing the first things? My imposter syndrome was very much like, I don't know everything. I don't know every game ever played, or what this person does, or whatever. Like, how am I ever gonna succeed here? And what I realized is that ideally what you try to seek out is an environment in which asking questions isn't seen as a weakness, it's seen as a strength, and just being like, I don't know, like, let me help me out. Also, having a different definition of success as well, rather than it being the end of. Sorry, I know we keep saying this, but it really does bear repeating. Rather than it being the end of something, success means like every single day. If you learn something new, if you connect to somebody, if you are able to also monitor your own progress and be like, at the beginning, it would have taken me like a day or 3 days to get this, and right now I can do it in 5 minutes. Really like allowing yourself to sort of give yourself a pat on the back for that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, when I started, it was just terror, because I'm not what everybody else is
in the industry is. Yeah,
like by a long margin. It is very, very much one specific demographic, and that's what it is. But then you kind of just figure out why you're doing what you're doing, and what you want out of it. And like I said, like finding jobs where you're very supported, and that may take a while, which again is okay, because as Tahira is saying, I think you can learn from everything that you do, regardless of how close it is to your ideal. Everything is a potential learning experience, and once you take that perspective, it's useful. But yes, what was your first say? Really quickly, though, I really love that one chance was like your 8th chance.
Yeah.
I was going to just add to what you said there, because it takes a lot of bravery to land that dream job and like, yes, I'm in the industry, and then actually assess that, but they don't value me here, and actually I'm not being my best self here, and I'm not developing to my full potential here. So that's a really good message, because it is this industry that's so hard to break into. Once you do break in, you're just so grateful to be there. But actually, you are an asset to that company, and it took me a long time personally as well to learn that I am bringing something to the table, and you need me as much as I need you to some extent.
Yeah, I think there's something really quite insidious about this idea of dream jobs, this idea of and I do think the game industry is so, the way in which again the narratives around the way that it's spoken about, they're a AAA, that if you get this, that somehow there's a you can ascribe value to yourself because of it, and you look at stories in the game industry about incredibly toxic and destructive workplaces that people endure because they feel like, I'm one of the lucky ones, I got the thing that everybody else wants. Being able to have that sense of self and value within yourself, to be like, yes, I really appreciate this job, and I'm a great I appreciate being here, but I'm not to the point that I'm going to devalue myself as well. That takes a long time to recognize, and even a lot of energy to maintain, because a lot of the things that will be coming at you will be chipping away at that. So it's not a constant. It's not a I'm the whatever. Like, no, it's you'll constantly be getting inputs that tell you should just be grateful, you should be quiet, you should take it, you should whatever, and that is honestly, that's something to combat, and I don't know how long it will take to root that out. But yeah, I'm so sorry again, got in the beginning of it, but
how you're thinking back to your first job after leaving Tesco's. How was that?
So it was really interesting actually. So someone got in touch with me, sent me an email and said, would you like to work on a project with me? And I, being growing up in South London, being very cautious of people reaching out, just ignored that message. And I had my CV online, and it had my phone number, and this person called me, and I was like, well, this person clearly wants to get in touch with me. And he said, my daughters really like your app that you made. I saw on your website that you're based in London. Would you be interested in making a game for me? And I was really honest with him. I said, it's just a side project at the moment. I would love for it to get to a point where, it would be my full-time job. And he said, do you know what? I really appreciate the honesty. How about this? You come to work with me for a week. I'll pay you whatever a week's wages. And, if I like you, we can carry on. If not, you've got a week's work experience working for a company. He was like, I don't have a clue about computer science and making games, but let's give it a go. And I was like, you know what, why not? So he owns a toy company, and he just wanted a digital version of one of his physical products. I was there for 3 months, so it worked out pretty well. But one thing that I found really difficult to kind of go over was I had no idea what I was doing. He didn't really understand what I was doing as well, so there was no benchmark. I didn't have a mentor that I could go to and say, I'm really stuck trying to, make this function work, or, why doesn't the graphics render correctly on an iPad? So a lot of the time I spent was on Stack Overflow and Unity answers, just asking people in the community how to fix these problems, and they were really, really helpful. So yeah, I felt very, grateful to be given the opportunity, but it wasn't, it wasn't like a typical first experience in the industry, but I learned lots because I was basically pushed into the deep end.
Nice. And I think with creative jobs, like I said online, you see all the highlights of it. You don't see the long hours, the antisocial hours, the rejections. But if you had to pick one thing about your job that you just love, what would you say that is?
I think without a shadow of a doubt, I think it's incredible that so many people have played something that I've made. So I've made 7 games, and they've been downloaded a ridiculous amount of times, and people have reached out and said really, really nice things to me. And yeah, like I think just seeing someone play something that you've made, or leave a really nice review, or like in the film said, someone reached out and said, I played this game every single day during lockdown, and it was really therapeutic. Those things just made the whole journey worthwhile. So the app that I made that wasn't a game is an app called Who Am I? And it was like a test to myself to see if I could build an application that wasn't a game. So I was like, what's the most simple thing you can ask someone? And that is, who are you? So it's an app that you download, you answer that one question, who are you? You upload a picture and your name, and I just pull it out there to kind of just see what would happen. And people from 60 different countries have downloaded it, and they've answered a question, and just scrolling through this massive list of people. So you can't comment, so it's more like a gallery, so people can upload their answer, but you can't comment on it. So like everyone's answer is valid, and everyone's on a kind of level footing. And
it's quite a deep question though, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very, very deep question. And I think it's amazing just seeing, where people are from, if that, if that influences their answer, if they talk about their work, if they talk about their culture, their religion, family, whatever it is. And I think just seeing that you can just build something, release it into the world, and just get such a varied amount of responses is incredible. Like, I think technology allows you to do that, and I'm just one person. So yeah, I think it's just pretty magical that all you need to have is an idea for that to happen, and a lot of time to fix bugs.
And I love that it's relatable. Everyone can talk about themselves. That's key, isn't it? And what about you? What would you say is your work highlight?
My work highlight is definitely, as I said in the film, like I love that it has to be a collaboration, what I do. And most recently, like, was leading a writer's room, and we would spend huge amounts of time, thinking about characters, thinking about story, thinking about what the experience would be when you make choices and stuff like that. And when you're presented with a story problem, and we sit together and talk it through, and then at the end of it come to the end, like we had to chart through an episode of how you get through stuff and whatever, and when you get to the end of it and together as a hive mind come up with a solution, I just love it. I love storytelling so much.
Can I steal you for podcasts as well?
Please, I would love that. But yeah, I just love and I don't know, again, it's probably a very personal thing, but like for the most part growing up, like I just feel like everything is narrative, right? A lot of the stories that you be told about being a black woman, being a black girl in spaces is that there could only be one, right? That you, and if another one came in, it would another black woman is in your space, they would immediately be competition. Yeah. That's constantly the various types of narratives that you see. And as Jayan's like completely changing that, but and it's the best thing. The thing that I've found as I've gone on and on is finding other black female creatives to work with, and they're just, I don't know, black women are the best. Sorry, they are.
It's just an unspoken respect, isn't it? Like, honestly.
And so funny, and like the writer's room that I was in, we had like so many different types, like the spectrum of gender and diversity, whatever. There's loads of different life experiences, and yeah, all of us coming together, and by virtue of all this sort of beautiful tapestry of loads of different minds and experiences and thoughts and beliefs, we came together with this whole holistic piece of content. It's just the best thing, and I really loved that. Maybe what I love is that who I am, and where I've been, and what I every single part of myself is necessary and valued, and is adds value to what we create. So I feel very, it's really nice to feel a part of something, basically, and that's what I love most about the way that I do my job currently.
Yeah, the community and the collaboration.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, Leah, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back in hindsight and be like, oh, I wish I knew? I know this is normally a big list for me, anyways.
Oh, Lord. I don't know. It's weird. I always think that because it's sort of tied to the question of would you change anything as well, and I think it would just be like just keep going, and maybe I wouldn't change anything, but I wish that I would get over stuff quicker. That I would spend a tiny bit less time, dwelling in the depths of despair about stuff, or not appreciating myself as much. I think I would, maybe that's what I would say to her. I'm gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I'd just be like, you're awesome, and everything about you is necessary and as it should be. So just keep going.
I love that, especially someone who in secondary school, in college, I think it took me getting to 20 and doing a course at Lewisham College for a teacher to actually be like, you're really good. Do you know what I mean? Like through my whole childhood education, it was, you're too chatty. Now I'm a presenter. You're too chatty, you're always disruptive, you're too much energy in the classroom. And it's like, I think it's so important for teachers to celebrate individuals rather than try and conform everyone, because we are not all the same. And sometimes our key characteristics are going to be assets later in life to us. So I really agree and connect to what you just said. Taiwo, what about yourself?
I think that is a really, really, really good question, and it really kind of made me sit back and reflect on kind of like this whole journey. And I think one thing that I would definitely tell myself is, really cliche, but like kind of like the never give up. Like there's so many hurdles, there's so many roadblocks, there's so many people that are going to tell you, no, you can't do this. Like even, myself as an app developer, with products that you can download and, tens of thousands of lines of code, people still saying, this isn't good enough, it doesn't conform to the standards. Like one chance goes against the grain. Like you make an application that people can only play once, when the metric of success is retention. You want people to keep going back and back. And I'm saying, do you know what? Actually, time is precious. Let me make something that's a little bit different. And the Who Am I app as well is another thing where I'm just like, I just want to make stuff that I'm proud of, and that it's a little bit different. I don't want to follow the crowd. So I would definitely say to my younger self to to just be brave. Like these ideas, no matter how silly or unconventional they are, just to go for it. And I'd also say the internet gets a lot better in the future, because it was a struggle.
I mean, you could even use your house phone, and mobiles weren't a thing, and the internet would cut out. I'm showing my age here, but honestly, you lot are so blessed now.
Don't even know. I'd really off the back of that, I really quickly wanted to add, I would also say, it's so key what you just said then about the metrics of success, and I have to say it to myself now as well, but definitely I would have said it to myself back then, is to make sure to define your own metrics of success rather than looking at the status quo, because there is a very, it gets somewhat political and whatever, but like it becomes systemic why it is that things are measured the way that they are and what's valued and things like that, and it may not be a reflection of what your values are or what you need or what where you're from. So rather than looking outside of yourself to define metrics of success, I did spend, what I've told myself as a young person is spend a great deal of time really defining for yourself what makes you proud, what makes you happy, and then how close and how far away are you from that in what you do and how you do it, rather than trying to look for validation externally.
100%. So I want to open up the floor now because I'm sure you guys all have burning questions yourselves. Anyone want to take a leap of faith? I'm going to come bring you the mic. Yeah? Amazing.
My question's for Leah around storytelling. Oh, sorry. I imagine that writing for games is different to other forms of writing for other formats. So what are kind of the main differences or skills that you should work on for moving from just writing for, say, film, prose, scripts to writing for games?
That's a really good question. I will say I was very lucky. I did an MA at Central St Martin's in dramatic writing, and what we did, it was called like an extended full time. So it was 2 years, and we did the first year was foundation, and then the second year we would worked in film, TV, theatre, radio, and digital media. So looking at how like the fundamentals of storytelling, although also Western Aristotelian, those foundations of storytelling could then be applied to different mediums and how you think about how a story is appropriate for different mediums. The question is, what skills would you need to develop? I think what I did was watched a lot of GDC talks. There's some really brilliant ones on narrative design. Play games, but also just be very think very laterally. So there's some kind of visual novels that are quite useful, and just think around always what is the experience of the person who is guiding the story. So when it's a play, when it's theatre, when it's television or radio, any of those things, it's very passive, right? So you your relationship with your audience as a writer is you entirely have your authorial voice, and you say, this is follow the arc as I've defined it. Once you invite the audience to be interactive, you're giving up some of that authorial voice. But what you need to maintain is the theme. You have an idea that you're trying to look at from various different perspectives and guiding them through. But you will then have to think about how can I tell the story multi-dimensionally so that no matter what choices the audience makes, it feels fulfilling, and I hit every single stage that I need to make the story feel successful. So skills-wise, I think it would just be about thinking. I think for me, it's always about just put yourself in the position of the person making the choices that will lead them off into different paths, different areas, and then how to basically hold multiple things in your head. I do a lot of mind mapping, a lot of drawing, in a way that I didn't really do as much before when I was writing linear stories. It would be a lot of writing stuff, but less visually plotting it out and seeing if I put this piece here and that piece there, and stuff like that. But yeah, like I think in try to like download Inky or Twine and just do very basic versions of storytelling and do what Taiwo did, like get feedback as soon as you can, engage with an audience. Because I think one thing that I find a lot with people who write choose your own adventure books is what you can do is get very you can fall in love with your own cleverness, be like, oh, see a lady down a dead end. As the audience, I'm like, do I even need to be here? Like, is this if it's just like, this is not fun for me to be told that I'm an idiot, right? So make sure to really engage with an audience as soon as you can with the basics of what you've got. And yeah, just I know that's not super helpful, but to say Google, but like fundamentally there is a lot of resources. And if I can think of any, you're more than welcome to email me, and I'll show what I can.
Any questions yet? Sorry, I'll walk in. Yeah.
Hi, this is a question for Taiwo. And I know that in game development, there is a lot of aspects to designing. So you're saying programming, graphics, art, audio, logic, physics, all that stuff. And since you're a solo developer, as you stated, what is the process in being able to balance all of those aspects, and what's the process of not being overwhelmed by all of it, and keeping the passion up even after you hit a roadblock where you're struggling because of, I assume there's going to be a lack of knowledge in a certain aspect.
I think that is an incredible question, and I think we could be here all day if I gave a very detailed answer. It's spinning multiple plates, and I think I've definitely got more strengths in certain areas. Like, I definitely was more of a creative. I play musical instruments, so sound is something that I'm really passionate about as well. And programming was definitely the biggest uphill struggle, because it's like, what programming language do you even use? Am I gonna use this approach to call this function and then run this coroutine, or am I going to do it a completely different way? So I think the most important thing is always have a MVP, or like a minimal viable project, so you can kind of just see everything going. So even if you're using like little cubes as the characters instead of fully rendered models, just to see if everything works, and then just believe in the process. Sound is one thing you can always learn. Programming is constantly evolving. Find a programming language that you have an affinity with, and the same with design and all of the logic and physics, and what platform am I going to release it on. Keep the faith, I think, is the most important thing. But I think it's something that I hadn't really thought about before, but it's definitely, I think, the only piece of advice I can really give in summary is don't be afraid to ask for help as well, because I think even the most talented solo developers reach out to industry veterans or friends that work in different places, and people are really happy to help on Stack Overflow, Twitter, going to people's personal website, finding their email address, shooting them an email. People have a lot of time.
Nice. Any more questions? You guys really want me to exercise today, didn't you? I think if you've got a burning question, let me know, because that might be the last one after this one.
This is a question for Taiwo. You said that it took you 8 months to develop the first app. And what kind of programming background did you have beforehand? Like, did you know any programming languages, or did you start from scratch?
So the 8 months to develop my first app definitely was kind of like from the ground up. So I was using Unity, and I was using Unity script, which is kind of like JavaScript. And I had dabbled in programming before, so I'd made some Flash games when I was a kid, but a lot of it was just trying things. So just really kind of I would spend hours like into the early mornings, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, just trying things out, and really just getting frustrated that I wasn't getting anywhere. But then once I kind of figured out how to do something, so the ball, when it was hitting the character, it wasn't disappearing and it wasn't updating the score. And then I realized how to fix it, and the jubilation, fist pump in the air and like throwing the chair in the air and just being like, I completed it. Those little wins just keep you kind of going, because I think a lot of people, like was mentioned earlier, they see kind of like the end result, like an iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg coming out of the water, but underneath the water is this massive rock. And I think that's the journey. There's so many kind of little steps and things for you to get to that top. I think it was just a process of doing that. Oh, I've got something on the screen. Oh, it's moving now. Oh, the score is updating. And then, the fact that you can do all of those things, release something into the wild and people can play it. It's like, doesn't matter if you get 1 download or 1 million, you've built something. No one can take that away from you. And I think getting to that point is an incredible achievement. So hopefully that answered your question.
Any final questions before we wrap up? Yeah, go on, one more, last one, and then we'll wrap up.
you want me to pass it behind?
It's okay, babe. I think I'm used to it now. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think this is a question maybe for both. But normally when you're working in the games industry and stuff, everything has to start from an idea, from a process of what you want to build, what you want to have in the game, so to speak. And what I want to know is, how do you get to that point? How do you get? Is it a collaborative process of what kind of idea or what kind of game you want to create? Where does the idea start from?
I think that's a great question. I think for me, I always like to think of things that are a little bit different. So even with Space Fox, my first game was a combination of loads of different games. So Arkanoid, Breakout, and Pong. And then things like One Chance, pretty self-explanatory, make a game that you can only play once. And Who Am I, ask the question that people have probably asked before. And my latest app is an app called Taiwo, and it's like an anagram game. So it's like a game that you play every single day, and you have a 5-letter anagram that you have to solve in 60 seconds, and a 7-letter anagram that you have to solve in 3 minutes. I looked to see if anyone had made anything like it. It's just like a little silly idea, but Taiwo, people have played that game every single day since its launch. So no matter how crazy or silly an idea is, you're probably going to find a community of people that are on a similar wavelength to you. So just go for it. But in terms of the creative process, just through life, I think just could be on a bus. Wow, that is a really cool idea. I'm going to put it to paper. Always have like a notebook or your phone to jot down these ideas, talk to people. Make it work.
There's two ways to answer the question. There's a more technical one and then a more sort of like emotional one. Starting the emotional one is some of the projects I've been on, like you start with like at the end of whatever the experience is, how do you want people to feel? And then what are you interested in? What do you want to say? And then how can those two things come together? And then we build the mechanics, we build the characters, we build all of the world around how do we get to that end thing of people will feel a certain way. More technically, there's this, we actually did an exercise with this consultant in trying to like just be very clear about what our game was. And he used this idea called self-determination theory, which is fundamentally an idea of why human beings just generally play games. And there are 3 pillars: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is things like Sims or Animal Crossing. It's a game or a game mechanic and a way of doing things that will allow people to just express themselves. And so it's very open world, it's very thing. And so all of your mechanic and all of your world building is built around making sure people can express. If that's the pillar that you're going to go for, you express that. If it's competence, then it's about loops. It's about making people feel as if they're getting better and better and better and better at something. And that's how you'll build levels then, and you'll build something that will make people move through it. And then again, if it's about a degree of progression, the narrative itself will be something that like builds and all the rest of it, you'll build it around that. If it's relatedness, that's more about how people feel, a connection that people feel to the story. And so it's less about them expressing themselves or whatever. And this is back to, this is where it's a much better place to exist in if you come from theatre or whatever, because you're basically making something that's very immersive. You want people to feel very connected to the world and the characters. And then potentially also to the other people who are also playing that game. So everything around about the way you build it will be about how can you create yourself an identity in this world, in this game, in this thing that you can then talk to somebody else who's playing the game, or how can you make sure that people really feel so strongly and connected to the characters in the world they're playing in. But I think the question was how do you start? Ideally, it is great, as I was saying before, to be a collaboration or whatever, but ideally you do have one person with a very specific point of view about what they want to say and what they want to do. And that is, again, relates back to a game only exists or is only worth anything once it's been played. In advance of that, it's flat. Like, you need a player for it to be a game. And so always keeping in mind at the very beginning, when somebody has finished playing this game, how do I want them to feel? And I wonder that Taiwo, I think on my thing, I think people are quite confused sometimes when I said it's really amazing that people are angered. Taiwo's email in about one chance angering them, and that's success, right? They feel something, you feel, and that the idea that you create something that will elicit such a visceral reaction that people take the time to like tell you they're annoyed is that's a huge measure of success. I really wanted to say something on both the questions you guys had is what I reflected on when Taiwo was speaking is fundamentally you just have to start. There's lots of paid spinning, there's lots of things that you don't know about, but if you start, what you get is this brilliant opportunity through problems to find solutions. But if you are trying to constantly, if you feel like, okay, and by the way, I'm saying this to myself as well as I'm saying to you guys, like if you have to get all of your ducks in a row, you have to get the perfect programming language, you have to get the perfect whatever before you can start, you won't do anything. You have to start to be able to find the obstacles, to be able to overcome them, to buoy yourself up from the small wins, and then you keep going, and also to learn that I don't have an affinity for that programming language. You only know that because you tried it. So yeah, fundamentally, all you can do is just start, and you're so. I love being old. Guys don't know you're bored. But honestly, youths of today, you've got so many resources and opportunities, and just by virtue of sitting in this room here today and like being at this university means that you have access to so much. So just pick somewhere, start, and give yourself permission to feel overwhelmed, but like forgive yourself for that and move through it and keep going.
I love that, but give yourself permission to feel overwhelmed because the creative industry will overwhelm you.
Right.
Oh, well, thank you so much to everyone being part of it, especially the Q&A. If you see someone with like a Borough of Culture t-shirt on them, please fill out the feedback forms because that's how we put on more things like this and keep doing free events. So that's really amazing. And if you're 16 or over, you can sign up to the Creative Futures, which will tell you about everything happening this year in Lewisham's London Borough of Culture. So thank you so much to our panel. Give them a massive round of applause, please.